Let's see if I can actually pick this stack up. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh god, it's falling. Oh no. Welcome to my Halloween special. I think I'm calling this a monster bash. I'm going to be talking about like basically all of my favorite monsters and the books I've read with them in it. So it's going to be talking about, vampires, werewolves, cosmic horror. The monsters are actually just people, and a whole bunch of like miscellaneous monsters. I have quite a few books here that to talk about, and I'm very excited. Yeah, I guess let's get into it. I'm feeling obviously the spirit of the holiday, so I can't wait to dive in. Ooh, and we're gonna start with one of my favorites, vampires. Now look, I have always been a basic girl, okay? I first got really into vampires because of Twilight, like every other girl out there. But Twilight's not on this list though, because for the purpose of this, I want to keep it, Twilight doesn't count as a spooky vampire, okay? Even though, hear me out, those vampires, like that type of vampire, in a horror setting, I would eat that up. But beside the point, let's get into it. I want to talk about, first and foremost, the obvious, one of the hallmarks of the genre, and that is Dracula. Now, I will say, though, I'm not the biggest fan of Dracula as a book. I think as a horror novel, it's very slow. I've described it before as it's obvious it was written at a time when the only transportation was horse-drawn carriages and trains, because what else are you going to do when you've got, a 20-hour train ride except for read books like this? But besides the fact that it seemed to get like sidetracked and almost like slice of life or whatever, kind of boring at some places, you can definitely see where the genre really like gets its roots from, and so I really like enjoyed Dracula as a whole. Moving on to almost a Dracula retelling, Dowry of Blood. Honestly, S.T. Gibson, I've only read 2 books of hers so far, but I've really liked her writing. She's an author I definitely want to get into more. But Dowry of Blood, it follows like Dracula is having like a polyamorous relationship with a bunch of people, right? And then this follows the point of view of his first wife, and she's just kind of like, her name is Constanta, and she's writing letters to him about their life together after she and his other wife and husband had killed him. This world was actually beautifully done. Like, these vampires, I really like felt to my core. They kind of go more towards classic vampires, except it doesn't follow the same classic story of Dracula, obviously, because, it's not the city vampire killer that gets him, but definitely recommend. Also, the other vampire book I've read by S.T. Gibson, An Education in Malice, well, this one follows as more of like a Carmilla retelling, and I have not read Carmilla, but I want to. It's on my list, along with Interview with a Vampire, and I kind of do want to read Nosferatu. I'm a little intimidated by it, to be honest, but that's beside the point. This follows 2 academic rivals who both are not only competing against each other, but also desperately crave the approval of this, like, I think it's a poetry teacher or like some sort of creative writing teacher. So like, it's almost like, I don't want to say a love triangle because that's kind of weird, but it kind of gives those vibes. And the vampire stuff in here gets really dark, but fantastic. I definitely love S.T. Gibson's work. A little bit of a turn here, but not much. I do want to talk about Empire of the Vampire. I need to read the second book. I read this originally as a buddy read with my friend Adia, and she loved the series. She's already read the second book. I need to get on that. But this follows, like, it's like a gothic fantasy kind of setting, following a half vampire that was part of the Silver Order, which the Silver Order is a collection of half vampires that have all agreed to hunt their sires to make up for the sins of what they are. You know, it definitely has some religious undertones, but a lot of these vampire books do. Like, I think religious fever or fervor, that's the word. I think a lot of that shows up a lot in vampire fiction, especially since a lot of the religious icons are the way that you combat vampires, and vampires are based off of demons, all of that fun stuff. Ugh, I would love to dive into religion and vampirism. Even Twilight, like, is written by a Mormon woman who is apparently incredibly religious. And then I'm using this book almost like a shift from talking about vampires to talking about the next topic, werewolves. And that is Bride by Allie Hazelwood. And I have not read the second book. I hear it's out now. I saw it in Barnes & Noble, but I did not buy it. But I want to read it eventually. It's on my list. But Bride is an arranged marriage between a vampire and a werewolf. This one's definitely the most lighthearted on this little list here. It's definitely more romance heavy. It's almost like paranormal romance more than like fantasy or horror. However, I love their relationship. It also brings in some like fun stuff from like that was popular in fanfiction culture, especially around wolves. But like overall, it's a fun little world. The vampire werewolf dynamics interact with like human society in ways that these other books don't. And I think it was fascinating little like alternate reality if vampires and werewolves were living in our reality and we knew of them and we coexisted with them. And there's also some fun like biographical things. That's not the word. Biologic things. That's the word. Because like I think it's the vampires. No, the werewolves. They have green blood, and that also affects like when they blush or whatever. It changes like the color of the blush under the skin and that kind of stuff. Super cute, super fun. Let's talk about werewolves now. Now, the werewolf books I have are admittedly much more limited. I'm sorry, my brain is moving faster than my mouth sometimes. So I only have 2 full-on werewolf books, 3 if you count Bride, but they're both good ones, and they kind of are both in a different range of what the genre can be. So I'm going to talk about both of them. First up, I'll start with the one that's the closest to Bride, and that is Fateful by Claudia Gray. Now, listen, I actually read this when I was in middle school. This is like one of the paranormal romance when that was a really big genre. That was my favorite genre from like 12 to 15, 16. So this book falls directly in that category. And it's actually about the Titanic, but it's about werewolves on the Titanic. This woman is like a maid of some kind for this like rich family that obviously is going on the Titanic to go to the New World or whatever. And she tags along with them, hoping that this will be her chance to like get like better opportunities for herself. And while on this ship, she falls in love with this man who, like I already said, ends up being a werewolf. And there's like another werewolf on board too, and there's like a feud going on, and all of this is going on while the ship is also sinking, you know. So it's so much fun. Admittedly, I have not reread this as an adult, so I don't know how well it necessarily holds up. But I remember 12-year-old me was salivating over this book. Loved it. But also 12-year-old me, you know, was obsessed with Twilight too. So you gotta keep that in mind. But also switching gears back into horror a little bit. Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. I actually think women and comparing them to like, or having them become werewolves hits so much better than when men are the werewolves, and I think it's where a lot of the genre gets it wrong. Like Teen Wolf, both the original movie and the TV series, both of them are both boys that, you know, get bitten by werewolves. And of course it's all this symbolism for, you know, going through puberty and suddenly having like all these hormones and body changing and all of that. But again, I still think that it's better for women because we literally bleed for a month, for a week. And I feel like also the fact that women's like menstrual cycles have always been connected to the moon. Werewolves are like the perfect analogy for that, and Rachel Harrison hits it with this one. It has very light body horror. Like, this is a good book for people that aren't super into horror but want to start getting into it. I think this is a perfect little like entry point, especially because it has this cute like romance side plot going on, and it's one of those where the main character comes from a big city, and through this act of returning home, getting bit by a werewolf and having to deal with all of that, she realizes like the way that her life has gone and the way it's unsatisfactory, and the way that she enjoys what's going on in her life more now, even though she turns into a monster like once a month or whatever. Great stuff. All right, moving on to the next category. Okay, we're going to talk about witches next. Now, books about witches have a special place in my heart because I am a practicing witch, so I'm always very interested to see what creators do when it comes to books about witches. And so here are some of the ones I'm going to be talking about today. First and foremost, I want to talk about A One for My Enemy. Now, this book, it reminds me a lot of almost like modern Shakespeare, and it is a Shakespeare retelling. It's like a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but the author does a very good job of making her prose very reminiscent of Shakespeare. And obviously it's not the exact same thing. Like, it's not like I don't read this and think, oh my god, Shakespeare wrote it. No. But overall I felt, my brain felt good reading it, if that makes sense. But it's about two families of a powerful witch family and a powerful warlock family. I actually don't remember if they're both considered witches. Some of these worlds, you know, male witches are warlocks and some of them are not. Beside the point. Two powerful magic families, and there are multiple love connections in each of these families, and seeing how far back it goes, especially compared to like the rivalry between these two families, it's a fun experience. This one does lag a little bit in the middle, where it felt like there was just some dead space that they were filling up to get to the climax, but besides that, I definitely recommend this one. And then more of like a realistic kind of witch, The Lost Apothecary. This follows more of like literary fiction route, right? And it's like a dual timeline where you're following this old woman as she takes this young girl on as an apprentice to her shop, where she is selling like basically poisons to women who want to use it to get back at men. And it follows a modern day woman who happens to find one of the vials that used to be used and starts researching it while she's on this trip to London because her husband had cheated on her and she needed some space and she needs time to figure out what she's going to do about that. So it's kind of a great like cross between this dual timeline like situation and like the way men treat women and the way women fought back. I really like this book. Like, it was one of my favorite books of last year, of 2024. So I had to include it on this list. Going slightly down in age, I will say, All of Our Hidden Gifts is a really fun, like, I think it's YA, and it's definitely like the type of YA where you could probably give this to any high school student, sort of, from like freshman to senior, and I think they would enjoy it. There are some heavy petting, so I don't know if this would necessarily be good for middle schoolers, but overall, the witchcraft in this is insane. Okay, so this girl finds a tarot deck when she's cleaning out a school closet as a punishment for her transgressions. And she becomes like popular around the school for giving super accurate tarot readings, and she does a tarot reading with her friend who she's had a falling out with, and her friend disappears after, and there's this whole journey that she goes on with a small group of other people who both knew her and the friend, and they all explore witchcraft and they explore what had happened. I didn't end up reading the second book, but there's more books in the series. I actually think there's more than 2 books. It might be 3 or 4, but I definitely enjoyed it. Again, recommend. Finally, I saved the best one on this list for last, and that is Slewfoot. I absolutely adore Slewfoot. Like, this is because, like, it takes place in puritanical, like, old school America where, woman could, like, look at a man wrong and get accused of witchcraft. And she is a widow, like, her husband dies, and she wants to keep the farm that they had together, but her brother-in-law doesn't think that she can handle it because she's a woman, and so she wants to prove him wrong, but she's struggling, and she ends up connecting with, like, this, like, forest deity and starts working with it. And it is a great, coming of rage, womanly rage sort of story. The writing in this was amazing. I want to read more from this author in general. Like, I have another one of his books on my TBR. So, just absolute love. I gotta give my full heart to books about witches. Okay, we have another smaller section, but I'm gonna go over some almost like cosmic horror. Now, some of these are like some of these definitely count, and some of these are a little bit on the edge. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start. I mean, I guess technically 2 out of these 3 authors are controversial, but H.P. Lovecraft. I cannot talk about this genre without talking about H.P. Lovecraft, even though I know he was an awful human being. Though I do want to make it clear that I didn't know that when I bought this collection of short stories, but since I have them, I'm going to read them. But there is a wide range of monsters in H.P. Lovecraft, but the most famous being Cthulhu, who H.P. Lovecraft as a whole is kind of known as like the father of cosmic horror, and just like between the Call of Cthulhu and all of these other like eldritch kind of horrors, I can't help myself. As a horror lover, I love to go back to like where the genre really got its legs as a whole, and H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, Mary Shelley, Bram Stoker, all of those fantastic horror writers, horror origin storyists, Anyway, the other controversial one I'm bringing up is Stephen King. Stephen King goes either way, I think, but It and the monster in It, I feel like definitely comes under cosmic horror, because like, yeah, he's a clown, but you can also like shapeshift like to all these other kinds of fear. And spoiler for It, even though it's been out for a while, including all of the movies, but the being in It that is it comes from space and is like an alien that has made its home in Derry, because of course it did. But I don't know, the way that these monsters obey different laws than the monsters of other stories, they're a little less earthly laws. The ways of defeating them are a little bit different than the normal ways you would defeat a monster. Definitely fun to deep dive. And then the final one I'm going to bring up, this one, technically saying it's a cosmic horror is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to see that, I would recommend scrolling into the next section. But it's The Deep by Nick Cutter. He gets a distress call from his brother, basically, in the Mariana Trench doing research, and when he goes down to visit, it turns out not only did his brother not ask for help, but there is some weird stuff going on in this research base down at near the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It's definitely very claustrophobic. You get a lot of flashbacks to his early life and his experiences with his mom, which, do they border on fat phobic? Yeah, but they're absolutely disgusting. But some of the scenes in this book still stick in my mind, even though I wasn't a fan of the ending. But that's beside the point. Cosmic horror, everybody. We're going to be moving on to our miscellaneous section. These are a bunch of like random collection of monsters, okay? And starting off, I'm going to hit the one that we have not seen, that you're probably wondering at this point where it is, and that is ghosts. I didn't even realize until I was putting together all the books for this videos, but I don't really have any books, or I've read at least any books where ghosts play a big part to the story. Like, even like most of the horror books I've read, there's not a ghost that's causing an issue, it's a monster, which that's just because I love a good old creature feature horror novel, horror movie situation. Though I've definitely seen way more horror movies with ghosts than books. But on top of this book I have, which I have made steady progress over a certain amount of time with, there's 101, I think, different short stories in here about ghosts. So it's a great collection. These are all like older stories too, like it's an anthology sort of thing. You can still see the bargain price because I got it from a used bookstore. But I want to read more books about ghosts. I am literally going to actively start looking out books that are horror books with ghosts. But that's the ghost mention for me here. Okay? Like Haunting of Hill House by I think Shirley Jackson's the one that wrote that. I might be wrong about that. But like that one's on my list I want to read eventually. The Possession, I think it's Possession of Alba Diaz. I want to read that one. But yeah, moving on. I have too many books on this miscellaneous list to get hung up about ghosts. But I felt like I needed to make that disclaimer. Okay. Something that's not used enough in the horror space that I want to bring attention to, especially because I loved this book. I read it in one sitting. But You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce is a horror book with the Fae. And like people kind of have given the Fae a kind of bad rap because of, I feel like, romantasy. Because romantasy has, I mean, obviously by the name, romanticized the Fae and have made them like objects to be desired, sort of, you know, Midsummer's Night Dream style. But this book, it kind of explores the dark side of the Fae on top of the dark side of humanity. Has an unreliable narrator where you actually don't know if these Fae exist or not. Great story. Highly recommend. Jumping ship to a completely different vibe. The Lady of Rooksgrave Manor, or A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. This one's fun because this one's incredibly spicy. This is for my monster smashers, if you get what I'm saying. But she has a reverse harem with a large variety of monsters. Like, I'm trying to remember them all off the top of my head. There's a vampire. There's a Jekyll and Hyde kind of man. There's a man made of stone. There's an invisible man. There's a sphinx. I feel like I'm forgetting one. It doesn't matter. You know, there's a large variety of men at play here. A large variety of monsters. And now this is a series. I have not read any of the other books in the series, admittedly. However, again, if you just want a spicy time with a fun mix of monsters, definitely want to grab that one. Again, changing up vibes real quick. Don't Let the Forest In is sort of almost like it's a forest rot kind of, I don't know if it counts as a thriller or a horror book, but it's like very psychological thriller horror. It's about these two boys, Thomas and Andrew. Andrew is in love with his friend Thomas, and he's not sure if Thomas knows. And Andrew likes to draw, and Thomas... no, it's the other way around. Thomas likes to draw, and Andrew writes the stories. So Andrew writes a story, and then Thomas draws the creatures. And the creatures start coming to life and attacking the school. So, yeah. This one is YA, so, like, you know, keep that in mind. But I love this book. Also, look at the back. Oh, gagged. Anyway, The Only Good Indians. Now, this one's fun because it has a monster from Native American culture, which is, I mean, she's technically an elk in this one, I think, but the deer-headed woman is a very interesting, like, I almost called her a deity, but it's not a deity, it's a monster, but she is haunting this group of men after they did something they shouldn't have when they were out hunting, like they committed some big sin, and now she's punishing them for it. great book. There's a little bit too much basketball in it, but I'm not going to get into that. Especially because I have 2 more books left of this miscellaneous section, so hold on with me. Okay, next. The bright cover is going to throw you off, but Bunny by Mona Awad, I don't even know how to describe the, like, monster in this book, because, like, it's about this cult of girls that call each other buddy, and they are manifesting boyfriends with magic. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I probably even shouldn't have said that much, to be honest, because going into this book blind is a treat. But just hear me out on that one. It's messed up in ways you don't even know. And then I saved this one for the end, because this one's not very autumn-ish, especially with the bright colors, but it's Zombies versus Unicorns, which is a very fun series of, like, short stories, and the curators of the short stories are, like, arguing with each other about whether or not zombies or unicorns are better. So in between each of the short stories, there is, like conversation about, oh, see, these stories is the reason unicorns would win or whatever, and these reasons are the reason zombies are better, sort of thing. Lots of fun. Highly recommend. Okay, on to the final section, and that is humans as monsters. Now, humans as monsters, I feel like, is one of the most popular things of the human genre. The horror genre, see, I told you, my brain goes faster than the words can come out of my mouth. But, like, slashers are a whole thing, you know, like, human experimentation, all of that kind of stuff. A lot of the books I have for you here are basically slashers, with, like, a few exceptions here and there, so let's get into it. Let's not hold back anymore. I'm gonna start with this YA horror slasher. It's actually became a movie, I want to say recently. I want to say it was near the beginning of the year, but honestly my mind has trouble telling what happened at the beginning of this year and what happened at the end of last year. So this is a movie, Clown in the Cornfield. I had a lot of fun with this. I wouldn't say I connected super deeply to it, but, like, overall it was, like, a fun read, especially when I read it last October. Or actually, I think it might have been 2 Octobers ago, because, again, my time in my head doesn't make sense. But this follows a girl and her dad. They move to this small town where this clown named Friendo is, like, the clown, or not the clown, the town mascot. And it gets really weird about it, right? But, of course, teenagers are being teenagers, and she gets invited to go to this party at this, like, farm area. And obviously stuff goes down. The entire party gets attacked by basically a posse of clowns. And it's great. It definitely goes in some like interesting directions. But overall, it's a great, like, young adult horror novel. Another great place to start if you want to start reading horror but you're not sure how to get into it. You're a little, like, you're a little wussy. So you want to do something light. I feel like this is a great place to start. Okay, next. The Final Girl Support Group. I had a lot of fun with this one too. Grady Hendrix is a bit of a hit or a miss for me. I didn't include it in the witch section because it was a miss for me, but it was like Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which was a book that came out, I think it was this year. I read it. I wasn't, like, the biggest fan, actually. I struggled with it a lot, but I like this book from his a lot more, which I want to read more Grady Hendrix, but it makes it hard for me to choose whether I should or not, considering I liked one book a lot but didn't like another book a lot. Beside the point, not the point of this video. The Final Girl Support Group, as the name probably suggests to you, in this world, all of the horror slasher movies like Friday the 13th, Scream, Michael Myers, Halloween, that's what that series is called. All of those events actually happen, and these girls were like the final girls of those events, and so they're in this support group together getting therapy, you know, and all of these, like, long-term effects that had plagued them because they were, you know, in these traumatic events. And it's definitely a fascinating look at almost like true crime, and the way that, like, true crime as entertainment has really blown up. I liked that you didn't actually know at some points if the main character was freaking out for no reason or not, because for her PTSD. Like, she has very severe PTSD. But I, again, had a great time with this. I actually read it super quickly. This one is fun because it's written in a very different style than the other ones. A Murder in the Family. Now, this one, it's written as a style by, like almost like this, like, script. I forgot what it was called for a second. It reads very much like you're reading a script. And so, like, there's no, like thick descriptions of the scenes, you know, but instead it's told through either, like, the conversations between these professionals, these reactions that the public has, like these different boards where people are talking about the episode after it happens, all of this fun stuff. And I, as someone that isn't a fan of true crime, which, you know, I was talking shit about true crime in this one, because sometimes true crime as a whole deserves to be talked shit about. But I really enjoyed this story as a whole. It's more crime than it is horror, I would say. Especially because nothing horrific happens because of this type of storytelling. You can't really be horrified, but a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Pen Pal. This one, I started to see the twist coming before I got to the end, but it still overall surprised me. And then, like, it kind of, like, flashes around on the timeline of the way things happen in this story. But basically, this kid, his class did a thing where they, like, sent out balloons, and that has, like, their information to get pen pals. And so people start writing back to them, and this one boy, who's the main character, he gets a really weird person that writes back to him that, like, only sends weird pictures. And as you go through the story, you see that basically the way that this event ruins this poor kid's life. Fantastic stuff. Finally, jumping around, this one's not a slasher per se, but there's definitely slashing going on, and that is Tender is the Flesh. This one, it's about a world where all of the meat sources, like animals and stuff, are no longer, like, good to eat. Like, there's something that makes them poisonous. And so the only choice for food for human consumption is other humans. Obviously very dark because it talks about cannibalism. The way that these other people are treated, like, differently because they are food grade humans. Then the main character itself, where he seems like he's going through a moral dilemma, but I can't say any more than that without giving away what happens at the end. Because the ending had me flabbergasted. But, yeah. Alright, that's the end of this Halloween special. Again, it was fun to talk about all of the different creatures in horror. And I know that the creatures that can exist in horror go way beyond this. Like, these, I was just talking about physical books. I didn't even go into any of the books that I've read through, like, Kindle Unlimited or through the library. But there's, like, definitely a whole, like, wealth of other types of creatures, obviously. This is, like, just skimming the layer off the top, especially the ones I tend to gravitate towards. Like, some of these sections were definitely longer than others. And like I said, I do want to read more books about ghosts. I want to get more into the historical, or not historical, classic works about, like, vampires. I'd love to do the same with, like, werewolves and stuff too. Maybe in, like, the future spooky months ahead of us, maybe I'll, like, do a deep dive on monsters in general or something. I don't know. That's for 2026. That's not a 2025 me problem. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe. I try to post at least once a week. The success of that varies, but I've been doing a lot better at staying on top of that since I stopped video game streaming. So I actually prefer to make these kind of types of videos anyway, so it all ends up working out. I hope you all have a happy, safe Halloween. I am gonna go finish watching The Conjuring universe. I was doing it for the new movie, but actually the new movie's out of theaters before I got the chance to watch it. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Okay. Love you guys very much. I'll see you guys in the next one.